Living Kids. We are so excited that we are together once again. Are you guys ready?
Yeah!
First, let's take some time to worship together. Stand up, get excited, and let's go!
Church mother in they church hat clap. Man, that sure gave her color purple coming back clap. When that whole week beat you up and stress you, but you hear that organ playing and remind you of your blessings. And on another note, she just hit another note. Chills down my spine, got me crying, make me overload. You don't know about it though. Old school church hymns, deacons get the humming, now the drummer finna burst in. Lordy, Lordy, Lord. Can you hear me now? Church close, sweater, you don't care, you just get it now. Testify how we made martyrs out of these fathers and rose up all of his daughters to glorify him with honor. Man, I swear Thomas Jones with her head did. Now it's flying everywhere, she don't care what her head did. She an egg, yeah, caught up in the egg, yeah. Probably why she clapping like Jesus just repaired, yeah.
Give me that God Almighty, that good old Bible, that old school doctrine. Give me that truth for the body, ain't nothing new about it, but it's still full of power.
Church clap, let me hear the church clap. 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 I wanna be the type of dude to get the Lord on his feet. I wanna do the type of shows that the Lord wanna see. What I mean, if I can make the whole church clap, it ain't a clap in the heavens, then that clap's just a clap, clap. For the Son glorified, sin mortified. The Holy Spirit going word, that truth ain't watered down. It's sound doctrine, gets birthed in the common. Nothing wrong with singing loud, but that ain't where the power's come. The church has been clapping at weak sermons, leaving the weak hurt. No one's changed by Sunday service. We need discernment, check what you be affirming, cause the church can be full of members but empty in conversion. Preach the gospel and stand back. Look for changed lives, not for hand claps. Love people well, oh they can't stand at the church. Just the church with the words where we stand up.
Give me that God Almighty, that good old Bible, that old school doctrine. Give me that truth for the body, ain't nothing new about it, but it's still full of power.
Church clap, let me hear the church clap. 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 Come on.
You're not a spaceman, you're not an alien, you're not from Krypton, you're not a figment of my imagination, of my imagination. You're not a fairy tale, you're not make-believe, you came from heaven to be the friend that I can always count on, that I can always count on. Hear me shout it out! Jesus is better than any superhero. Jesus is my best friend, whoa, whoa. Jesus is better than any superhero. Jesus is my best friend, whoa, whoa. You are the hero, you are the good guy, you are the savior, and I know that you're always gonna be there. Yeah, you're always gonna be there. When I'm in danger, when I'm in trouble, when I'm surrounded, well I know that it's you that I can count on, that I can always count on. Hear me shout it out! Jesus is
searching, you found me. Your love opened my eyes, my heart forever changed. No more standing still, no more going back. Oh, your love is moving me. I came alive when you found me. I'll never be the same. Oh, I shouted out to everyone around me. I am forever changed. Your love is moving me, yeah. Moving me, moving me. Moving me, moving me, yeah. Moving me, moving me. Your hands reach out to me. Only by grace I'm free. Your love makes me new. I am forever yours. No more standing still, no more going back. Oh, your love is moving me. I came alive when you found me. I'll never be the same. Oh, I shouted out to everyone around me. I am forever changed. Your love is moving me, yeah. Moving me, moving me. Moving me, moving me, yeah. Moving me, moving me. I came alive when you found me. I came alive when you found me. I came alive when you found me. I came alive Your love is moving me. 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 Your love is moving. I came alive when you found me. I came alive when you found me. I came alive when you found me. I came alive when you found me.
God's story. Gideon. So part of God's story is about a man named Gideon, and it begins like this. Israel, God's special family, had turned against the one real God and worshipped idols. They had forgotten how God had loved and cared for them and needed a reminder that He was the one in charge. So God took away the Israelites' farms for 7 long years. Whenever the Israelites planted crops, God would let another nation called the Midianites sweep through and camp on Israel's land, ruining everything that was growing there. But even though his own family had forgotten him, God still loved them deeply. So, at the end of the 7 years, God appeared to a young Israelite named Gideon. God said He was going to free the Israelites with Gideon's help. Gideon, however, wasn't so sure, so he asked God to prove Himself by performing a series of miracles. Gideon said, "If the fleece is wet with dew in the morning but the ground is dry, then I will know that you're going to help me rescue Israel as you promised." That's what happened. Just to be sure, the next night, Gideon asked God to do the opposite, make the fleece dry and make the ground wet. And God did it. Next, He even sent a sign through an angel. Gideon was finally convinced that God was in his corner, so he called together an army to fight against the Midianites. Now, normally having lots of people is a good thing when you're about to battle, but like I said, God does things a bit differently. He told Gideon that the Israelites had too many soldiers. If they won now, God knew the Israelites would say it was because of their own strength and brag about it. So, God wanted Gideon to have a smaller army. Gideon was nervous, but he did as God asked, which is always a good idea, by the way. He told his men that if they were afraid, they could return home. With that, 22,000 soldiers left, leaving Gideon with about 10,000. For you math whizzes, that's 2/3 of his army just poof, gone. Even after all that, the army was still too big. So God told Gideon to take the soldiers down to the water to drink, and then send home the soldiers who drank out of the stream like dogs. Again, Gideon did what God asked and was now left with only 300 soldiers. God knew Gideon was probably worried, so he told him to sneak down to the enemy camp where Gideon heard soldiers talking about a crazy dream where a loaf of bread rolled into the Midianite camp and over their tent. One soldier said that could only mean that Gideon would triumph over them. Gideon returned to his own camp confident that he would win the battle. He divided his men into 3 groups and gave them each a trumpet and a jar with a torch inside. Not usually what you bring to a fight, but God had a plan. Gideon's army reached the edge of the Midianite camp and then went into action. They blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, and shouted, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" And don't forget, they did all of this without a single weapon in their hands. Terrified, the Midianites fled, accidentally attacking each other as they went. In fact, they ran so far from the battlefield that other Israelites were able to capture and defeat the leaders of the Midianites. With the enemy leaders gone and their army running away, God had saved Israel, just like he said he would. And that's the story of Gideon. So, in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Israel turned away from God. God reminded them he was in charge. God said he would save Israel. He would use Gideon. God performed miracles for Gideon. Gideon gathered an army. God made it smaller. Much smaller. Soldiers had a dream. Gideon's army surprised their enemies. The Midianites ran away. God used Gideon to save Israel. And that's a part of God's story.
Hi, Pastor Diana.
Hi, Finny. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. You know, I was just about to read a Bible story. Would you like to read with me?
Wow, I so would.
All right, here we go. We're going to be reading about Gideon's battle. God's people kept disobeying his rules, so God allowed their enemies to take all of their food away.
Whoa,
Oh
that's
my
crazy.
goodness. Again, the Israelites turned to God for help.
That's a good idea.
That's
Pastor
right.
Diana.
That's right. Again, God answered their prayers. Isn't that awesome?
That's awesome. Don't you love how God always answers our prayers?
It's true. It's so true. God chose a man named Gideon to help his people. God sent an angel to Gideon. "You are a mighty warrior," said the angel. Could you say that with me? Let's say it together. "You are a mighty warrior." Awesome, said the angel. "You will save God's people," Gideon said.
That's so cool.
"But I'm not from a family that isn't rich or important."
Aww.
Then Gideon prayed to God. He said, "I need a sign from you, God. I will put some wool on the floor. Tomorrow, if the wool is wet and the ground is dry, I will believe you."
That was pretty smart of him to pray when he had a problem.
It's true, Finny. The next morning, the wool was wet and the ground was dry. Can you believe that?
That's insane.
But Gideon wanted another sign.
Woo.
He said to God, "Now, if the wool is dry and the ground is wet, I will be sure you have chosen me."
Wow.
So the next morning, God made the wool dry and the ground wet.
What? That's so cool, Pastor Diana.
Now Gideon was so sure.
Yeah?
He said, "God, I will do whatever you say."
Right.
Over 30,000 men wanted to join Gideon's army. 30,000 men?
That's a lot of men.
That is way too many, God said. He showed Gideon how to win with only 300 men. Can you believe that?
Whoa!
30,000 men to only 300?
That might be pretty scary. Gideon.
Wow. The plan sounded so strange. But guess what?
What?
Gideon trusted God anyway.
Wow, that's so cool.
During the night, Gideon and his men surrounded the enemy camp and blew their trumpets. All right, I want to hear everybody blow their trumpets. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wow! That was amazing! Oh my goodness. Great job, Finny.
Thank you so much.
And they smashed clay jars.
Gun, 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 gun.
They waved burning torches in the air, and their enemies were frightened.
Whoa.
This must be a huge army, they thought. So they ran away, and guess what?
What?
God's people won!
Yay!
Woo! The end. You know, I'm so thankful that no matter what our battle is, God has got our back. Aren't you thankful?
I'm so glad. That was such a good story, Pastor Diana.
Wasn't it? I'm so grateful that we got to read it together.
Me too. You know, I think maybe we should read another story next week, right?
That'd be awesome. I'd love to. This was so much fun.
Thank you for reading to me, Pastor Diana.
Absolutely.
Yay, bye.
See you later.
Slapstick Theater, Gideon's 300 Men. This is Gideon, who was a judge of Israel. In the time when Gideon lived, a group of people called the Midianites were taking over the Israelites' land.
Get out of here!
And the Israelites were starving. So the Israelites asked God for help. God chose Gideon to rescue the Israelites.
Hey, everybody!
And gave him the power to lead an army of Israelites.
Yeah!
One day, Gideon and his army got up early and came close to the Midianite camp. God told Gideon that he had too many warriors with him.
Really?
So God told Gideon to let all the men who were scared go home.
All right, you can go home. Phew.
So 22,000 men went home, and Gideon was left with only 10,000. But God told Gideon that he still had too many men with him.
What, really?
He told Gideon to bring the men down to the water and that God would give them a test.
Okay.
Gideon did as God asked, and then God said, "Divide the men in 2 groups. In one group, put all those who cup water in their hands and lap it up with their tongues like dogs. In the other group, put those who kneel down and drink with their mouths in the stream." Only 300 men drank from their hands. God told Gideon, "With these 300 men, I will rescue you and give you victory over the Midianites. Send all the others home." So Gideon did as God said.
You can go home.
That night, God told Gideon to get up and go down to the camp to listen to what the Midianites were saying.
Hey, Pura, let's go.
Gideon and his servant Purah went down to the camp and saw the huge army. There were too many men and camels for Gideon to even count.
Whoa, that's a lot of camels.
But Gideon heard a soldier telling another man about a dream he had that showed them that God would give Gideon victory over the Midianites. When Gideon heard this, he worshipped God.
Come on.
Then Gideon and his army of 300 men went down to the Midianite camp. They blew their horns and held torches in their hands. They yelled out, and the Midianite soldiers rushed around in a panic and tried to escape. Then God caused the Midianites to start fighting against each other. Because of God's power, Gideon and his army had victory over the Midianites that day.
Hey, living kids, my name is Peter.
And I'm
Piper. And we are doing the memory verse. Okay, so today's memory verse is Philippians 4:13. Philippians 4:13. Yes. Philippians 4:13 says, I can move. No. Move? It's do. I can do. Yes. Okay. All things. Yes. Through Christ. Through ice. No. Ice? Yeah, ice. Why? Because ice. You said ice, so I said ice. No, I said through Christ. Oh, Christ. Yes. As in Jesus Christ? Yeah. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. I love that guy. Yeah, same. Who strengthens me? Who weakens me? Are you hungry, Peter? Yes, I love wheat thins. I can tell. Especially with the string cheese. You know, like that comes in a can? Yes. Okay. I said strengthens me. Oh, like the superpower? Like superhuman strength? Yes. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so all together, Philippians 4:13. Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Who weakens me? I'm sorry. Okay, strengthens me. Got it. Yes. Is that it? Yeah. That's it? Yeah. That's it? Yeah. No, there has to be more. Nope. Okay. Woo! Good job, guys. Thank you for doing the memory verse with us. Hey, guys, we'll see y'all next week. Bye.
This story begins in the land of Israel. It was a very scary time. When the Israelites were living in terror. Sorry. It's okay. At any given moment, their enemy, the evil Midianites, could attack from the east and kill everything in their path, destroying their crops, destroying their donkeys, destroying their sheep, destroying their camels. Hump. The problem here is Israel was God's chosen people. And now they're without food, without shelter, and being bullied at every turn. But God had a plan, and that plan involved a man named Gideon. Gideon was chosen by God to defeat the evil Midianites. But Gideon was not chosen for his skill with the sword or his muscular physique.
Pump you up.
It's impressive. Or his dashing good looks.
Like that guy.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah.
But God knew that Gideon was the right man for the job. God saw something in him that no one else could see.
His small intestine.
His heart.
Oh, right, sorry, his heart.
One day, an angel appeared to Gideon. The angel told...
Sorry, that was a big angel.
I guess so. The angel told Gideon that God wanted to use him to defeat the Midianites. But Gideon was shocked. He said, "Why me? I'm just a regular guy." But the angel said, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." So Gideon followed the angel's instructions and gathered an army of 32,000 men. And they began to march towards the camp of their enemy, the evil Midianites. But then the Lord stopped Gideon. God said, "Send home any man who's afraid." Well, 22,000 men dropped their swords.
Oh, ow.
Hey, you okay?
Yeah, I got myself in the foot a little bit. It's okay. I'm fine, just keep going.
All right. So Gideon only had 10,000 men left, but they regrouped and they kept on marching. But again, God stopped Gideon. He told Gideon to lead the men down to the river for a drink. 300 men cupped the water with their hands. The rest of the men got down on their knees, stuck their faces in the water, and slurped. Hey, you all right?
I think I swallowed a fish.
What?
Oh, that's salty.
So God told Gideon to send those men home.
Okay, good. I think I need to go to the hospital.
So now, Gideon is going to face 135,000 Midianites with just 300 men? Wait a minute, why isn't Gideon afraid? Tell you what, let's rewind back to when the angel first spoke to Gideon.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Okay, no, Andrew, hang on. That's like too far back. That's like the very beginning of the Bible. Let's go fast forward just like a little bit.
Sorry, you got it. I saw a beast with 7 heads and 7 crowns.
Okay, no, hang on. No, that's like Revelation. That's like the end of the Bible. Let's go back to Old Testament, please.
Old Testament,
Yes.
you got it. Like a cluster of grapes on
Okay,
the
no,
vine.
Song of Solomon, let's get out of there. Okay, let's go to Judges chapter 7, please.
The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor.
Okay, that's it. The angel called Gideon a mighty man of valor. Even though Gideon didn't feel like he was anything special, he chose not to listen to his feelings. Instead, he believed what God said about him, that he was a mighty man of valor. And it was time to act out God's plan. So one night, while the Midianites were sleeping, Gideon and his men quietly surrounded the camp. In one hand, each man held a torch, covered in a clay pot, and in the other hand, a trumpet. Then, in the middle of the night, Gideon gave the signal. They broke the clay pot, held the torches high, sounded the trumpets, and shouted for the sword of the Lord. And Gideon,
What he said!
the Midianites sprang out of their beds, grabbed their swords, and totally panicked. They just started fighting. In their confusion, they started killing each other.
Ow, Uncle Pete, it's me, stop!
Gideon and his men stood back in amazement as the Midianites completely destroyed themselves. That day, Gideon defeated the Midianites because he always believed what God said about him, that he was a mighty man of valor.
What is up, living kids? I got an awesome craft for you today. Today you're gonna be building a torch just like Gideon did. All right, all you're gonna need is a paper towel holder, a paper towel thing. And if you don't have this, just get some piece of paper, it's gonna be just fine. And then you need some construction paper or colored paper that's just fire colored. If you don't have this, just get some regular paper and color it fire colored. And then you're gonna need a glue stick or some glue, some scissors, and then anything you want to decorate the outside of your torch. Today, I'm gonna be using some tinfoil just cause I like mine and I want it to look real cool and rock and roll, okay? All right. And now, you have an awesome torch just like Gideon to remind you that you can fight the battle no matter how big it is. Let's go.
Wow, we've gotten to do so much together today. We got to sing together and worship together. We got to hear the story of Joshua. We've got to craft together. Now, if you didn't finish your craft, you have time to finish it after this. So next week, make sure you make time to be together again. We can't wait to see you again and to worship and to learn all what more God has for us. So we'll see you next week, Living Kids. Bye!